Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, since time immemorial, man has looked to the heavens and prayed for a day like this. The Egyptians of the 31st century BC looked to Osiris, or as we call him, Slayer for the Sky Dragon. The Aztecs prayed to Tlaloc. The Mayans sought from Cha'ak. The Hinduism presented us with Lakshmi, and of course, the Vikings called upon Freya. But folks, the time has finally arrived, for Bennett the Boring shall henceforth be erased from Irminsul on a permanent basis. Hello everyone, welcome back. When Mavuika was teased, the Genshin community had hoped that she could be both a Bennett and a Xiangling power creep. Now she was able to clear Xiangling, but as the Pyro Archon, naturally this made a lot of sense. When she was released though, we all realized that in the most narrowest of senses, she was in fact not Bennett power creep, for she had nothing to do with the increase of attack for anyone on the team. I personally had never seen a community feel so disheartened since, let's say, the 3rd anniversary +3 limited fates incident. You remember that? And at the time, all hope was considered lost. Enter Iansan, a surprise, but a welcome one to be sure, for none had ever anticipated that the personal trainer was in fact going to be an attack buffer. And while she does have her own challenges, this is true, it has been quickly established that Iansan is in fact one of the best attack buffers in the game. However, at the end of the day, when it comes down to the numbers, because a lot of people care about that, Bennett still outperformed Iansan. He has a stronger flat attack buff, which Iansan can't make up with her C2. Whilst Iansan can provide a bit more damage percent with her C6 and still make full use of something like the scroll artifact set, at the end of the day, in the eyes of the theory crafters and the meta slaves, the Bennett was still reigning somewhat supreme for quite a lot of teams, especially teams with Pyro DPSs, because then he'd fill the additional role of activating the Pyro Resonance buff. That is the context of a few days ago, and just for anyone watching, I am of course recording this a few days ago, because I'm excited. And this was a time when the Genshin community was still living under the brutal fascistic totalitarian regime known as the Bennett Defense Brigade. The Bennett Defense Brigade, a group of people who scour the internet, the forums, the YouTube comments, and just continue to regularly demonstrate why they are the most insufferable bastards on the planet. But as of last Wednesday, with the release of Genshin version 5.6, the sun doth finally shine upon us, ladies and gentlemen. We can feel the warmth of its light. The populace is finally fed, for the grass is now greener. We have Symphonist of Scents, the signature weapon of Escoffier. Now let's remind ourselves what this weapon actually gives us. 608 base attack, and 66.2% crit damage, and plus 12% attack, plus another 12% attack if the character is off field, and then on top of that, if they heal anyone, then both they and the character they heal end up getting plus 32% attack, and that's at R1. What does this mean for Iansan? Well, first off, with more base attack compared to weapons like Torch or Favge, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to reach that 3k attack. And whilst the crit damage is rather worthless compared to, let's say, ER on either Favge or Torch, overall, though, we're still getting quite a lot more attack percent coming from this weapon as opposed to Torch, for example. So that does mean that whatever build you're using on Iansan that can reach 3k attack, you're definitely going to be going way over 3k attack with Symphony of Scents. And on top of that, the attack percent buffs that you can get from this weapon, they actually have 100% uptime as opposed to Torch, which only has a 10-second uptime, which is very much not 100%. The current active character, i.e. the one who's getting regularly healed by Iansan, will also get plus 32% attack. Now here's the thing. Iansan's healing happens once every 2.8 seconds and the buff lasts for 3 seconds, so it is 100% uptime. But based on the way that the passive is written, and let me remind you, I am recording this before I actually get the weapon, I'm thinking if you're going to use a quick swap nuker, like let's say Mavuika, then you may want to delay the nuke just a little bit so that you actually get healed by Iansan, even if you're on full health. That way, you can then get the buff. So that's really, really good. What happens now? How does C6 Iansan with Symphonist compare to C6 Bennett with Aquila or Mistsplitter or, hell, Absolution? Well, here's something I prepared earlier. Comparing Mavuika ults. We have 3 tests. We have 2 with Iansan, 1 with Bennett. One of them is, of course, delaying that ult like I mentioned a little bit earlier. As you can see, Mavuika is doing significantly more damage with Iansan compared to Bennett. So that's it! Job done, right? We've clearly demonstrated it. Well, I can already hear some of the Bennett Defense Brigade getting mad. And for the first time in their miserable lives, they actually have a point. Because I am only showing a level 70 out of 80 level 11 ult Bennett. Because that's the thing. I cannot physically demonstrate the power of a level 13 ult level 90 Bennett. Because I have way too much self-respect to waste any more resources on Bennett the Boring. So, like all good theory crafters who aren't bothered to build everyone for some good old-fashioned first-hand testing, let's rely on some math. You ready? Here we go. Here is the comparison between a proper C6 Bennett versus a proper C6 Iansan. The main thing to note, number 1, is that final buffed attack. Notice how C6 Iansan actually has slightly more final buffed attack than with Bennett on Mavuika running Wolf's Gravestone. And that is of course taking into account the Wolf's Gravestone passive or substat, but that's a control between both of them, so it doesn't really matter. The big thing of course is that we are getting so much attack percent coming from Iansan that we are able to make up the difference in the base, or rather the flat attack bonus. On top of that, we also have C6 Iansan versus C6 Bennett, which means we have 25% all damage bonus coming from Iansan, which can be maintained very easily with Mavuika, compared to the only 15% Pyro damage bonus coming from C6 Bennett, and of course the Pyro infusion, which is worthless on Mavuika because motorcycle LOL. So, you can apply the math to other amounts of base attack. You'll find that more base attack actually favors Iansan and vice versa. In fact, I did the math, or rather I got ChatGPT to do the math for me because I'm a little bit lazy. The bare minimum base attack on a Pyro DPS for Iansan to start getting better than Bennett is 933 attack. But for teams where Pyro resonance doesn't exist, like a Navia team for example, the bare minimum base attack is actually 632. 632. For some context, my Yunjin is currently running a level 80 Footprint of the Rainbow. And she has 640 base attack. Let me say that again. 640 base attack. She clears that. Understand how trivial this is. Now, there is of course one main counterpoint that will be brought up, so let's address it right here, right now in Merge. Iansan heals as well, but obviously not nearly as much. Now, there are a variety of reasons why I don't think this is a valid response at all, but let's just go through a few of them. Reason number 1, what if Arlecchino, what if Clorinde? Reason number 2, circle impact. If the enemy is on the other side of the map, you have to leave the circle. That's a deal. Okay, you leave the circle, you lose the healing. Iansan doesn't actually have a circle, which means you can keep moving around, you'll still have that permanent healing. That's really, really good, until, of course, her duration ends. But that's the case with everyone. Oh, but you need to move with Iansan's buff. Well, that's true. There are going to be some characters that are going to be struggling to keep up Iansan's buff. The Night Soul meter is going to be a little bit here and there, but hell, I was able to keep Iansan's meter up relatively nicely in my Ningguang team. So there's that. We are, of course, talking about C6 Iansan versus C6 Bennett, so, you know, C4 Iansan helps a lot in this regard. So, yeah, that's another thing as well. Now, the reason number 4 is, of course, Pyro Aura. Bennett can't heal you if you're getting one-shotted by Hydro Legends in Spiral Abyss, Ziox. Reason number 5, the 70% HP threshold. If you are above 70% HP, Bennett doesn't heal you at all. Did you know that if you have between 0 and 30% less HP, you are actually 60 to 100% more likely to get one-shotted by something. Now, I didn't do the math. I got ChatGPT to do the math. I don't understand the logic, but that's what it spit out, so let's just go with that. This is why Bennett was the reason you were getting one-shotted by Hydra Abyss Legends in the Spiral Abyss, and it was not because your Fischl wasn't tanky enough, Nick. Reason number 6. How many teams do you play with Bennett and not bring along someone like, I don't know, Shillidan or Shen Yun these days? They're significantly better healers, and it's not like Bennett can team heal Farina teams anyway, because, you know, it's Bennett. Every second you spend healing anyone who isn't your DPS, it's -1 second on that attack buff. So that sucks. And finally, and honestly, this one is the most important reason. I'm surprised people don't appreciate this nearly as much as they should. He's boring as hell. No drip, no friends, no animation flair, no relevance to the story. There is nothing to tie you to Bennett on an emotional level. Even when Mari Javari comes out, I feel like there is a very good to fair chance that he's actually going to be irrelevant in that as well. Hey, it's not my fault that nobody knows who the hell or what the hell he is. Which is why I'm going to destroy him from Irminsul forever. Okay, we finally have a build for Iansan that actively power creeps Bennett. And that's before we start talking about artifact sets, of which 4-piece scroll tends to completely overtake 4-piece noblesse as well, especially because we're talking about attack. Attack is now getting massively oversaturated. So if we were to put on our theory crafting glasses and our meta slaving hat, here is the hot take. If you are playing any character with at least 632 base attack, you need C6 R1 Symphonist Iansan. You need this. It is a must pull. If you are playing any character with at least 632 base attack and you are not using C6 R1 Symphonist Iansan, you are playing the game wrong. You are wasting your time, you're wasting my time, you're wasting everyone's time. You are actively losing DPS. You are making your Spiral Abyss runs longer. You are causing Bennett to still be allegedly useful. You are ruining the game. The fuck's wrong with you? You disgust me. You don't want to play the game wrong, do you? You don't want to be a bad player, do you? C6 R1 Symphonist Iansan is the meta. And with this meta slaving hat, the meta is all that matters. And obviously, if you can't maintain Iansan's meta, that's a skill issue. Stop complaining and get good. Okay, now that we've done that psychopathic analysis, here's the real takeaway that I want everyone to have from this video. You absolutely do not, under any circumstances, need to get Symphonist for Iansan, okay? I have been playing with Torch Iansan since her release, and whilst my incredibly high opinion of her is somewhat colored by the fact that I have C6 Iansan, here's the thing. I am still very, very satisfied with Torch Iansan, because at the end of the day, Iansan is actually already really, really strong, and I'm glad to see the community rally behind her as an actually perfectly strong and at least equally viable option for a lot of teams. Hell, even with Pyro DPS, I've seen a lot of people say, yeah, you can play Iansan too. That's really, really cool. I like that. So you don't need Symphonist of Scents, okay? You don't need it. You don't need it. So, you know, if I do decide to get Escoffier, I personally won't be too miffed about giving her my one and only Symphonist of Scents. Okay, maybe that's a lie. We'll just have to see. Oh, by the way, I just want to note a couple of other examples of characters that definitely have enough base attack that C6 R1 Iansan can already power creep the boring one. Pretty much any 5-star with any 5-star weapon. But I also want to note Arlecchino with the Scythe has like over 1,000 base attack. C0 R1 Clorinde also has over 1,000 base attack. So does Navia with Verdict. So basically C0 R1 Navia. Yeah, Mavuika also has a C2 where she gets plus 200 base attack, which is like, what the hell? So, you know, if you're running C2 R1 Mavuika, the gap between C6 Iansan with Symphonist and like C6 Bennett with Aquila is like probably massive. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Now, I'll throw the Bennett Defense Brigade a bone, okay? There is one specific way that you could still potentially make Bennett just a little bit better than C6 R1 Iansan, if you will, and that's by running Freedom Sworn. I've done some math on it. It's a bit finicky, but I think Freedom Sworn can somehow outperform C6 R1 Iansan in some cases, so it's a little bit here and there. That being said though, I've put up a poll on a variety of places, my channel, r/OKZiox, and r/Genshin Impact, but without the underscore because you can't do polls in the main one. It seems like absolutely fuck all players use Freedom Sworn, so yeah, nobody is doing it. Which means, in the grand scheme of things, even the Bennett Defense Brigade doesn't want to save Bennett anymore. It's actually so Jova that we're here. And so here's the thing, if even the Bennett Defense Brigade is not using the one weapon that can save Bennett's relevance in the meta, what are y'all mad at me for? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.